Hi everyone, welcome to K-Chain Garage. Today I'm going to show you how to put together a CertiFlat welding table kit that comes from tabandslot.com, weldtables.com. This table has 5/8 holes, 2-inch on center. The table and the ribs that reinforce it is 3/16 steel. There's a whole bunch of different weld table tools you can get that you can attach to the table to clamp stuff down. It's really nice, so then you can just ground the table and get to welding. It's going to be a lot easier to build this thing if you have a dead blow hammer and if you have some steel straps and some rod, so you can strap it all together real tight. This is all laser cut. If you do that, you're going to get a very flat result, a very strong result. So let's get into it. I went and picked up the shipment from Tab and Slot today. Got the 3x4 welding table and the fab block kit for the 30x30 fab block and the legs for it. It all came on one pallet, 455 pounds. So I think I'll just break down the pallet and get it off the truck that way, because I don't want this to fall. I don't want to hurt myself. I'll go over all the pieces and then start welding stuff together. Here's the leg kit that the table came with. 36-inch legs with a tapered slot for the spanners, for 42 and 30-inch spanners. Feet cut for the bottom of the legs. And when this goes in here, it'll create a minimal amount of gaps in welding we'll need to do, so this won't get heated up any more than it needs to. Nuts will attach to the feet and these wheels with wheel stop. The tabletop kit shipped in this box with a shipping weight of 126 pounds. The table ships in the box the way it's supposed to be assembled. These longer ones, because I have a 3x4 table that I'm building. The longer ones go first and key into the top, and then the 3-foot ones go on top of that. Before we put this on the table, let me show you the tools that we're going to use. To build this, there's several tools we're going to employ. This is basically almost all the clamps I have. These various clamps, so that we can clamp down every joint so the table is as flat as possible and has as much rigidity as possible.
Additionally, however, you can sell, none of these clamps are big enough to reach to the center of the 3x4 table. So this is what I'm going to do about that. These 1/2 inch 13 bolts. And I'm going to make some straps out of this 1/8 inch and put washers so we can strap all the center joints so it can be as tight and as rigid as possible and stay as flat as possible as throughout the life of the table as possible. I have a 2 and a 4 foot level because this table is 3x4. I want to get as many angles measured as possible for level and flatness. I have this aluminum straight edge. What I want to do is use the aluminum straight edge to feel the gaps, to see if there are any, so that I can get rid of any low spots by doing a gap check, spanning two ribs, and do a gap check to see if one's high or one's low. I also got some 1/2 inch 13 all thread if I figure out that we need to strap something else, but I don't think we're going to need that. I got this square so I can check gaps and level. Something that I found I think is pretty effective, you just have to be careful with what you're doing, is I have these trailer jacks, or these trailer stands, they're not jacks. They can hold 1.5 tons each. But they shouldn't be used for raising something, but they are infinitely configurable so I can make the table level while we're working on it. Because in every way that I can make the table level and flat, I want to do that while building the top as we weld it and so on. If I need to measure random things, I can measure random things. We got a dead blow hammer. And various blocks of wood wherever I need additional raising or bracing. I'm going to set up these jack stands. Let's get the top up here so we can measure it. Okay, I adjusted the horses and made the table level. And then I put the jack stands on the table. And now I've checked the levelness in every direction. And we're pretty good. So now I'm going to put the ribs back on so you can see how that goes together, and then we'll check what that looks like. There's a bunch of smart design things, such as the way the tab goes in the slot. So you only need to put the minimal amount of material in there and weld as far as heat when putting this together to minimize any warping of the table. If anything does happen in shipping or anything like that, the pieces are marked. The 3648 table, this is the long piece. Now we do the ribs across. And these pieces are marked as well, the short side ribs. You can see some droop on this table, but as we clamp this, you'll see it all straighten out. Now to make these straps. I marked the edge of the hole and the center of the hole with a marker. I have these drill press clamps. Make it real easy to hold this in place and drill the whole way through. All the perimeter clamps are on here. And checking this out, all directions of the ribs are pretty level. When we take the straight edge, I don't feel any rocking. I don't feel like there's any high or low points. Well, this is a little low. I'm wondering if I just strap here and here, will that pull it all together? So that's what I think we'll try first. This might be a little low now. If you're not sure if you've gotten it as tight as you could possibly make it before we start welding anything, one good thing is a pen light test. You know you don't have anything stuck in there if you can't see the light except through the tab holes. Looking pretty good. Weight on the table is flat and tight. So the first thing to weld is we just want to glue the grid together, all the ribbing together. keep the table flat to prevent warping. We're only going to, we will weld on one side for each of these joints. Halfway down, a downhill weld to weld that joint together. I'm going to do a corner and then I'll go to a different corner because I want to minimize the heat that's in the ribs and in the table overall so that we don't get any warping. Okay, so I have finished a 3/4 of an inch weld bead, one at each cross point between the ribs in the grid. And I flipped the table over because the only remaining step for the top now is to tack each tab and slot. And when you're doing that, you want to stay, just put enough tack in there, you want to try to stay below the surface, because that minimizes the pull of the weld in either direction. All the slots are, all the tabs are like this, so when they're in the slot, you just put the weld in the middle, you minimize the pull. Because the ribs in the top is only 3/16. But because this is all laser cut, and the way these channels are, we minimize the pull. Before I weld that, I want to see how flat we are. Feels really good. For not having a weld table to build this on, I think we've gotten a pretty good result. If you follow the directions say you should be able to be within 15 thousandths. Just follow the directions, clamping everything tight, minimizing heat, distributing heat. So let's get this tacked. I'm just going to try to do it in a way to distribute the heat. And once we've done that, then we'll come back, fill all the channels in. Here, I moved the clamps so that I could get at the other tabs and slots. So this has a tack. The clamp was laying on top of this one. Same thing here. So I want to make sure all of these have some material in there to hold it on there before I move those clamps out of the way. And now that I've done that, I'll tack the couple that are missing, and then I'm going to fill in an alternating pattern. Fill in a channel there, go to that corner, come back to here. Just try to do a star to minimize the heat going into the top. Got this 80 grit flat disc. I'm trying to knock off just enough so that we're below the surface of the table. A little bit of fill wasn't completely filled in. Not a big deal. We want to try not to remove material from the table, just to remove any excess weld or any boogers. That one was pretty high. I'm trying to keep the disc almost parallel to the table, so that way I'm not removing any more material than I need to get it flat. Here's a little tour if you're curious. These welds haven't been cleaned up at all. These welds, I just got with a wire wheel to see how filled they were. And then these guys, I hit with the flap disc. So there's no high points anymore. Once I finish cleaning this up, I'll probably just gently orbital sand the whole thing, have a uniform finish.
I got the top cleaned up and I flipped it back over. Now we need to put the leg kit on. Leg kit comes with these foot plates, and what you're supposed to do is tack the nut to the plate, and the nut could just be on the inside of the leg like this. The kit actually comes with a wrench to be able to turn the wheel nut to tighten it on there. There's a cross cut in the top of the leg, and there's two insides. Doesn't really matter where the legs go as long as the insides point towards the center of the top. Just get it started, and then we take the spanner, put the tabs of the spanner in the slot of the leg. Once we have this all legs on here, we'll take this dead blow hammer, you can beat the leg down on here. All right. So now that the foot plate is attached to all the legs with a nut on the inside, let's get these legs on here. If you notice, I haven't really tried to beat the legs in there. The way this is supposed to go together is, now that this is all here, you beat the spanner into the leg, and that will also beat it into the table. Not really driving it in there. When I hit it by the foot, it's starting to get pretty tight. Definitely feels different once you bottom out. Once you bottom out, make sure they're all bottomed without really hitting them anymore. And then come back and hit them one more time. As long as you go on evenly, shouldn't really bend anything, and we should be pretty square, pretty level. So now I'm just going to do a weld bead on the vertical sides, and that should keep the legs nice in place. All right, now that we have that welded up, let's get these wheels in here and turn this thing over. And here we go. The welding table is all done. Stands by itself. It's probably about 200 pounds now, all put together. Rolls nice. So if you get one of these CertiFlat welding tables from Tab and Slot, hope this video helps you put it together.